Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. All right, everybody, we are back, and I'm joined by the one and only, my friend, Candace Plattor. Candace, if I could brag for a minute, Candace has done a TED Talk, is an addictions therapist and the CEO over at Love with Boundaries. And when you hear her speak and you hear the ideas and the experience that she has with this, you're blown away. She makes so much sense. Welcome back to the show, Miss Candace.
Thank you very much. I'm going to take off my distractions. Lovely to be back. It's lovely to see you. Hi, everyone.
All right. Oh, we were having a little bit of technical difficulty, so I didn't catch that. But it was just a welcome back. And today, I would like to just, if you can, just reiterate, if people never saw your program before, a little bit about Love with Boundaries, a little bit about yourself, just in case we get new listeners here. I think I'm frozen, but.
Yeah, I'd love to. I think we keep freezing, so I'm hoping that viewers, you'll just stay tuned with us. Hopefully, this will stop freezing.
Yeah.
So I am, like Casey says, I'm an addictions therapist. I work specifically with the families of people who are struggling with addiction because there's so little help out there for them. There's a lot of help for the people who are addicted, but very little help for the families that love them. So that's you. I'm an author, I'm a speaker, I've done a TED Talk, and I'm also 35 years clean and sober myself. I was an opioid addict for 15 years without knowing that I was an opioid addict. I knew something was very wrong, but I didn't know what it was. Because I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease and given a lot of prescriptions that were addictive and that were opioids. So that's kind of the nutshell of my story.
I got you. And Candace, I never asked you, when did you know that you were addicted?
Well, there was kind of a step before that. There was leading up to it is that one day when I was at work, I was not feeling well because with Crohn's, I often wasn't. I'm a lot better now. I still have Crohn's, but I'm a lot better because I take better care of myself. But at that point, I went to the staff room and I just laid down for a little while on my break. And I started to think about all the pills I had in my home, in my bathroom, and how easy it would be for me to just take them all and not wake up. And I started seriously thinking about killing myself because life had become so difficult for me as an addict, even though I didn't know I was an addict at the time. And I was so depressed, I was suicidal, and I really scared myself. So what happened for me was that I knew I had to make a decision. Was I going to live or was I going to die? If I wasn't going to die, then I needed to figure out how I was going to live better than I had been living. And so I picked up the phone and I called the Vancouver Crisis Center. I'm in Vancouver, Canada.
Yeah.
I called Vancouver Crisis Center. Helped me by listening to me and being respectful of me and my pain and really hearing me instead of doing what the doctors were
Judging
doing, which
you
was
and
basically saying, look, it's all in your head, is what they were saying to me. Yeah. And it wasn't, So the journey was that I decided to sign myself in voluntarily to a psych ward here in Vancouver. so I could get some of the help that I needed and not kill myself.
Mm.
And so I was there for about a month. And during that time, I heard about 12-step programs because I didn't know anything about them. And I started going to Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous. I don't go anymore, and I'm happy to talk about why I don't. But at that point, it it just totally saved my life. So that was when I started listening to the other people who were sharing in the groups, especially the bikers, all the bikers, all the all the motorcycles that were outside the building, and all the bikers in their black leather and their chains and their tattoos, and they would share in meetings, and they would be saying fucking this and fucking that. Can I say that on the air? You can take it off
Whatever you
if I
want.
can't.
You're
But
fine.
they would be saying that in their sharing, and I would be sitting there going, oh no, what have I gotten myself into? But it was wonderful. I would sit and cry. I would just sit and weep through the whole meeting, and then they would come up to me and they would hug me and they would tell me to keep coming back. And it just as time went on, I started to understand about my own addiction and how that had started and what I needed to do about it. So that's how that happened.
There's three questions. First, I do want to know why you don't go anymore. I do want to know that. But before I get there,
Okay.
uh, did you ever have any problems with suicidal ideology before you started taking the prescription drugs? And had you ever tried to
No.
stop?
Um, no, I had not been suicidal before then. It's kind of amazing that I hadn't been, because growing up in the family I grew up in was not a picnic at all. But I never thought about killing myself. I just kind of, as a child, what do? You go along, you put one foot in front of the other, and you just do what you have to do.
Yeah.
Um, I was in my early 20s when I was diagnosed with Crohn's. And before that, I had always been healthy. I had been in university and having a good time there and doing, just being an 18, 19, 20-year old,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Um, did I ever try to stop? Once I was diagnosed with Crohn's, the pain of Crohn's can be absolutely unbearable. I hardly ever feel that anymore. I've had 3 major surgeries, and I've been in a lot of pain with this over the years. It's debilitating, it's excruciating sometimes. Anybody who has this illness or something like it, or knows somebody who has it, you understand what I'm talking about. So, you know, for 2 reasons, no, I didn't try to stop. I didn't really know that I needed to stop. It was helping the pain. I didn't know about addiction. It wasn't on the radar at that point. And I felt better when I used painkillers because
You
I
just out of
wasn't in so
pain.
much. And I'm just out of pain. And emotionally, it was good for me too, because if I'm not in pain all the time, then I was a pretty high functioning addict. I could hold down a job, and I had a place to live and a car to drive and food to eat. But I was miserable. The other thing is that I was the kind of addict who really liked being high. I liked the feeling of being high. I have since had to have medical drugs, prescription kind of drugs for surgeries and things like that. I don't like being high anymore, and I'm so happy about that. I don't like that feeling of being out of control.
Okay.
But at the time, I loved it, and I smoked a lot of pot, and I just got kind of as stoned as I could get, so I didn't have to deal with my reality,
Got you.
which was pretty gruesome.
Understood.
Yeah.
Understood. So how about you mentioned
Yeah.
before, you said it's a story of why you don't go anymore um after 35
Yeah.
years.
Yeah. And I'm I really want to say that I think there are some wonderful things about 12-step programs, like sponsorship, like somebody who's there for you, who has your back.
Anytime.
Um, the well, that's how it should be. It's not always like that with sponsorship, but ideally, that's what sponsorship is.
Okay.
And the fellowship. where you're with like-minded people and they understand you and you understand them just simply by virtue of the fact that you're all addicts and you understand what addiction does to
Right.
somebody. And people who are in those programs want to recover for the most part.
The
Most
most
of them
part,
do.
yeah.
So yeah, so it's good to be with people like that. Um, the problem for me, I went to them for about 10 years, the first 10 years of my recovery. And as time went on, I really began to understand the philosophy of the 12-step program and the teachings of that. And basically and this is what I have a problem with, and basically what they teach is that you have a disease. They
Oh,
talk about addiction as a disease, like a medical disease, like you have a brain disease,
like
that
Crohn's.
you're powerless. Well, it's not like Crohn's, that's the problem, but that's what they're trying to tell us,
Right.
is that
I mean,
we
that's
have
what
a
they're saying, that
disease.
you can't control it. You have
Right, you
no
have
say
a
in the matter.
disease. Yep, you've got a disease, you're powerless over it, you're always going to have it. If you don't keep going to meetings for the rest of your life, you're going to relapse, and you might relapse anyway because that's part of recovery. And I started listening to this and really hearing it when I had enough brain fog clear for me, when I was clean and sober long enough. Um, because what you said about Crohn's, addiction and Crohn's are not the same. They're not similar even at all.
Hmm.
I don't consider addiction to be a disease. There's brain involvement. There's brain involved in every single tiny little thing that we do as human beings. That we can't do anything without brain involvement. So just because there's brain involvement with addiction, and there is, that doesn't mean that it's a disease. And I know about having a medical disease, and I know about having a disease that I can't seem to get rid of, even though I so want to. You know, I can't get rid of Crohn's. It goes into remission, it comes back, goes into remission, comes back. If that's the nature of it. With addiction, you can get rid of it. You can simply, it's simple, but it's not easy, but you can simply stop using. And once you start using and stop using, sorry, and doing the inner work that it takes to understand oneself, to get to the pain that's underneath the addiction, because the deal is that when we look at addiction, it's not really about what are you using, how much are you using, what are you shooting into your arm, putting up your nose, down your throat, what are you doing, how much, what is it? It's not about that. It's about the pain that's underneath that makes you want to escape. That's what it's about. So just to get clean and sober, to do just that, I think that's what they call a dry drunk or a
Hmm.
dry high. If you're going to stop using, and you're going to stop drinking, and you're going to stop gambling, and you're going to stop shopping too much, and you're going to stop eating too much chocolate, and you're going to stop doing the things that you know are are bad for you, or interfering with your life, you've
Hmm.
got to get underneath that, to the pain that's making you want to do it in the first place.
Right.
Otherwise, you will relapse. You'll keep using something to make you not have to deal with life.
It's like what you're covering. It's what you're covering up, and that was my entire point. Is that they're
Right.
treating it as Crohn's disease, as something equal to being an addict. Where Crohn's disease, you're not volunteering to have this happen to you. It's there, and there's nothing you can do about it. You can, like you said, you can make it a little bit better, whatever. But they're treating it as the same. So
Yep.
I understand exactly what you mean. I agree with you 100%.
Yeah, and I appreciate that you understand that, because some people do and some people don't. So I always appreciate it when people do. We can kick addiction to the curb. We can absolutely do that. And the way to do it is to get to a place where you're making a choice inside yourself, saying to yourself, I don't want to live this way anymore. I just don't want to live this way anymore. I want to do whatever it takes. You know, I don't know about where you are, but we're in Vancouver, meetings, 12-step meetings have names to them. So we have names of meetings like you gotta wanna, right? You gotta wanna. And then there's another one, whatever it takes is another name of a meeting. The courage to change is another name of the meeting. So we have to be willing to do the things that it takes to really recover from the pain involved in why you were using the addiction in the first place. And it's not easy. And I know it's not easy. I've been doing my work, my inner work for a long time now, but it's so much easier to live this way than the way I was living before. So even though it isn't easy, it's so much better. It's worth whatever you have to go through to get to where I am today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I wanted to get your thoughts on. It's been a while since I was in the meetings, but do they still tell people to stay away from relationships for a year while you're in recovery? And what do you think about that? If that's still a thing?
Well, I think they do. I have clients who still go to meetings and they come to me and they tell me they should stay away from relationships in the first year, but they're not, um, most of them.
Mhm.
So that teaching is still there. I understand it. I think there needs to be a period of time where because people who have been addicted have used relationships, have used other people to fill them up, to fill that hole in the soul that they feel.
Yes.
So, you know, it's I think it's really good for people to have a period of time where they're alone.
Mhm.
I don't mean alone with nobody. I mean, not in a relationship with a significant other, because that brings up so many of our triggers. I mean, anybody who's in a relationship, who's married, who, you know, is just dating knows that, man, you're having knee jerk reactions all over the place when you first start dating someone or you're in a long term relationship. And if you're also trying to stay clean and sober through that,
Yeah.
that can be difficult. So if you can give yourself with a sense of I care about myself enough to do this for myself, right? If you
Mhm.
can give yourself a period of time where you're doing some inner work and you're starting to understand yourself more, so that when you have those knee jerk reactions, you start to know what to do about them and you don't have to go back and relapse.
Yeah.
And if I can say something about relapse, um, is that okay
Of course.
to
Yeah.
go into that for a minute?
Yeah. But
Yeah.
right before you get there,
So,
no, I'll say till you're done, please. Relapse.
okay, relapse. Yeah. So, you know, I think family members are maybe listening to our talk today too. And I think it's okay that we're talking about this today for you to have more of an understanding of what addicts go through and what they need to go through. Underneath all of this, if an addict stays clean and sober, they're making the choice to stay clean and sober. If they if they stay in addiction, they're actually making the choice to stay in addiction. And you know, if somebody relapses, the acronym for another word for relapse, it's called SLIP, and it's SLIP. And people minimize with that word. Oops, I slipped. Oh, no big deal. I just had a slip. Well, slip means sobriety loses its priority. That's what slip means. And basically, what's happened is if I'm going to slip, I'm going to set that up for myself. I'm going to start telling myself, nobody really loves me. Nobody really cares about me. You know, I'm going to be saying, well, I can go and have a joint. Nobody will know. Right. I can start setting up a slip if that's what I want to do. And it's always a choice situation if somebody slips, if somebody relapses. Relapse does not have to be a part of recovery for addiction. And the point that I really wanted to make, you know, in the 35 years that I've been in recovery, and I don't even know how that happened, but in the 35 years that I've been here, um, I have known people who have been given diagnoses of stage 4 cancer, and they knew they were going to die because there just wasn't anything more that could be done for them. And they chose to stay clean and sober until they passed on.
Wow.
Anybody would have understood if they decided to start drinking again. Everybody would have said, well, that's fine, right? I've also known people who have lost children while they've been in recovery. Really horrible situations, just catastrophes that have happened to people who have chosen to stay clean and sober. It's absolutely a choice. Then we have what in the addiction field we call the broken shoelace, which is the opposite of that, where something very minor happens or you have a knee-jerk reaction to something and we call it a broken shoelace. Oh, my shoelace is broken. I think I'm going to go drink. Either way, it's a choice,
All a
but you
choice.
don't have to drink no matter what. There's a saying in 12-step programs, they have such great sayings. It says, don't use or drink even if your ass is falling off. If your ass is falling off, put it back on and stay clean and sober. Like, nobody has to relapse. It's a choice. And if your addict, loved ones, if your addict continues to relapse, they are making a choice to do that. And you are so important in this equation. What you do or don't do at that point is so important. And that's what I help families with.
Gotcha. Got you. I thought it's a very effective topic that somehow we got to today. Love picking your brain, and thank you for sharing about your story. And I was just going to tell you that I think you'll appreciate this. When we were talking about the relationships, and you touched on it, and it's something I heard in one of the rooms years ago. There was a gentleman that said, "There's nothing more narcotic than falling in love." So, meeting someone
Yes,
new and finding, and some people use them to fix you. I can, I'm going to use this person to fix, but in my old age, Candace, I'm learning you got to be okay with you before you can even think about meeting somebody else,
that's so true. We've got to be okay with ourselves. We've got to spend some time with us, just with us. And, when you talk about falling in love, like, that's not real love. Love comes with time. Love comes with trust. Love doesn't come with, oh, that person can fix me. That person can fill me up. And you glob onto somebody for dear life, hoping they
Yes.
won't abandon you. And it's like the sick and twisted version of love.
Yeah.
And so when you're in too early recovery, and you don't know yourself very well and you're not choosing a partner very well because you don't know yourself well, and you get into one of these situations, you're on your best behavior for maybe a minute and a half with each other, and everything just, he's the one, she's the one, I'm
Yeah.
going to marry that person, be happy forever. And you're like that for just a little while, and then you start learning about the person and they start learning about you, and it starts looking more like that.
Mhm.
In fact, I had a sponsor in my first year, and she said something to me. Now, this is 35 years, and I still remember it. She said, addicts go into she said, addicts jump into relationships in the middle, and then they wonder why they're over so soon.
That's very so true.
Brilliant,
That is
right?
brilliant. Yeah, really.
Brilliant.
Yeah, I
That's
remember that one.
exactly what we do. So if we can give ourselves some time to just relax and get to know ourselves and get to know whether we're codependent or not, and most of us are in addiction,
Mhm.
because we just want somebody to love us so that we can feel like we're lovable, and it just doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
Not very well.
Well, guys, Candace Plattor It's such a help to so many people. Candace, let me give you the last word here and then let people know how they can get a hold of you, because there might be a lot of people out there that love an
Yeah,
addict and don't know what to do. This is the person that you need
yeah,
to get a hold of.
yeah. Thank you. So, my website is lovewithboundaries.com. And I've named it that because when we're in a relationship with an addict, even with anybody, but definitely with an addict, we have to love. We have to love with boundaries. If we're not loving with boundaries, this is not going to work. So when you go on the website, you'll see that we offer a free 30-minute consultation. It's absolutely no strings attached. We hear a little bit about you. You hear about what we're doing, our programs, how we might be able to help you. We see if we're a fit, and we just go from there. If it's not a fit, that's okay. If it is, we're going to help you, like right now, because you've been suffering long enough. So all you have to do is click the link for that. It will take you to a short questionnaire. Fill out the questionnaire, submit it to us. We'll get back to you like almost immediately, as soon as we can, and we'll get that process started. I think the last word is, please don't give up, and please don't think that this is hopeless, because even though it may feel like that to you right now, the situation with the addict you love, it feels hopeless, and sometimes it gets better and then it gets way worse, and then it gets a little better and then it gets worse, and you're at the end of your rope. You're frustrated, you're desperate, you don't know what to do. Who can help you? We can. So if you want to reach out to Love with Boundaries, we are a specialized program of working with loved ones of addicts, and we know exactly what to do for you. So,
all right, guys, that's the one and only Miss Candace Plattor on the Candace Plattor Show. And have a great weekend. Thank you for everyone who wrote it. I'm sorry I didn't get to you, but we will. Candace, you're a great guest and a great show today. Thank you so much. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you can now listen live on the MyTuner Radio and online Radio Box apps for iOS, Android, and the Amazon App Store. Or check us out online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com or search Podcast Business News Network on onlineradiobox.com/US so you don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
Mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.